Well, we already have our character modeled, textured, and with bones. Now, let's go to move these bones to get the animation done. To that end, we can drag the little icon in the corner, to get a second window. And then, we change it to DopeSheet. DopeSheet window can provide us information of the location, rotation, scale, and other variables, of the bones through the timeline. Here below, we have by default a timeline, that starts in frame 1, and ends in frame 250. Rolling the middle mouse button, you can zoom in, or zoom out in the timeline. The timeline has a light gray color between frames 1 and 250. If I move the line in this point of the timeline, here you can see the number of that frame. Here, you can see the current frame in which you are working in the timeline. Here, you see the start frame, and the end frame of the animation. If you need more frames for your animation, or less frames, that it ends in 80 frame for example, you can type it here. We can type 200 frame for our animation, by now. Later, we can change it. Let's start in frame 1. We select all bones with the A key. If it deselects all bones, press A key again, until all bones are selected. Then, we press A key to display the Insert Keyframe menu. Now, here in the list, you can select what you want to be saved in the current frame. You can save the location of the bone, the rotation, the scaling. Also, you can select at the same time, the location and rotation, or the location and scale, and some combinations more. We are not going to scale the bones. For example, we don't want the character's head becomes bigger, or something like that. We will always use the location and the rotation, so the most common one is the lock-rot combination. If we select lock-rot, in the DopeSheet view, we will see the 5 bones of our character. The bones have a little strange names. We can change the names here, in the bone icon. We select one bone, and here, we type a name for that bone. We can type left arm. But it's better this way. Arm, dot, L in capital letter. Because, if we name the other arm as, arm, dot, R in capital letter, then, if you want, for example, a walk animation for the character, and you have the character with the arm in this position, and the other arm, in this position, as we have named both arms, like arm L and arm R, you can invert this pose very easily, and the left arm pose will become the right arm pose, and vice versa. So, you can invert easily a pose of arms and legs, if these arms and legs are named like that. Here, you can see the new names for the arms, that we have written before. Let's change the name of the other bones. Head, body, base, now you can see the names of the bones. If you do click in one of the little arrows, you can see some little balls with information of the location in the x-axis, in the y-axis, in the z-axis, and the rotation in x, y and z, and a fourth value named w. We have saved the location and rotation of each bone in the first frame. That is, the character will have this pose in the first frame. Let's create the first animation. That is, the idle animation, a typical one for video game characters. Let's move to another frame. 15, for example. Press Alt-Z key if you want to see it in texture view. We can rotate the head's bone in the Z-axis. OK. We have to remember. Press I key to save the location and rotation. You must save the changes with I key. If you don't do it, and if you rotate an arm, for example, when you change to another frame, and go back to the frame in which you rotated the arm, you will see that the arm is not rotated. You didn't save the rotation. So, when you change a bone, press I key, and save it. When you save it, a little ball is generated with the information. Let's rotate this arm a little bit. And we save it. Let's rotate the body in the Z-axis. Hey! Something is wrong. Let's press Z key for wire view. I was rotating the cube, not the bone. You must not move the elements. You must move the bones. If I rotate the bone of the body, you can see that the arms and head are rotating too. That's because the bone is rotating respect to the center of the sphere below, and it affects all the following bones. That means, the bone will move all the next bones, both the connected bones and the offset bones. The connected bones cannot move freely. If you try to move the head, it is like glued to the previous bone. But the offset bones can move freely to another location. This kind of bones have much more freedom. So, we rotate that bone, and then we save it by pressing I key. Well, if we move from the first frame to the 15th frame, you can see how the animation is done. It is interpolating between saved points in the timeline. If we select the upper little ball in a frame, all the little balls of that frame are selected. You can copy all these little balls by pressing Shift-D key. Let's drop them here, so you can see this. Between the first frame and this other frame, the little balls have an orange strip. That means that there's no change between them. They have the same location or rotation, or whatever it is. But between that frame and the 15th frame, there are some changes. Because of that, there are no orange strip, but a gray void. If we select that little ball by pressing G key, we can grab it to another position. Beyond the 15th frame, the orange strips disappear. That's because there are changes between them. But if you take a look at the base bone, you can see an orange strip between the first frame and the last one. That's because we haven't moved it. Along the timeline, the base cube remains static. Let's run this little animation that we have done between first frame and 29 frame. We have to change the end frame here, by typing 29. You can see now that the lighter grey strip has changed from 1 to 29. These yellow lines tells us that there have been inserted keyframes. Press Alt-A key to run the animation. When the animation reaches the end frame, it runs again the animation in the first frame, and so on. The animation is going a little fast, so we have to move the keyframes. We stop the animation by pressing Escape key. We select these keyframes and we move them by pressing G key. And now we move just this last keyframe. There, we see that the last one is in the frame 60. We type 60 in the end frame. We run the animation with Alt-A key. Perfect. The character looks like he's looking around. You can see that the loop animation works good, because the last frame is the same that the first one. If we duplicate this keyframe and we move here, in 80th frame, let's type 80 here. If we run the animation, you will be able to see a weird break. Puff. 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 That's because the start frame doesn't match with the last one. Let me remove that keyframe. In loop animations, you can duplicate the first keyframes and then move it to the end. And in the middle, you can change the location or rotation of the bones. We can move this arm a little more. Here, we can rotate this arm a little bit. Let's run the animation by pressing Alt-A key. Ups. It's running beyond the last keyframe. We change the end frame to 60. We run the animation. Cool. It works great as a classic idle animation. Let's move to the next animation. Walk animation. We can use the end of the idle animation as the start walk animation. Let's select the bone of the base. We can press Z key to change to wire view, and so, we can see better the bone, and select it. Now we rotate the bone in the Y-axis. Here, you can see the value of rotation. You can see that the rotation is -1152. Then, we can type, for example, -10. Press I key, and then, lock rot. And in a few next frames, we rotate it in the Y-axis, 20 degrees. The walk animation is a loop animation, so we must have the last frame the same as the first one. Select the upper little ball of the first frame of the walk animation, duplicate it with Shift-D, and move it beyond the last keyframe. I will move these frames. The animation goes from 60th frame to 101. But, if these two frames are exactly identical, we will have a very little moment in which the animation will be static. When the animation is going in the 100 frame, your next frame should be the starting frame, because the frame 101 is identical to the starting frame. Then, the walk animation would go from 60th frame to 100 frame. Because the 101 frame is the same as the 60th frame. If not, The animation would be static during 1/25th of a second, if it is running 25 frames per second. Let's type the start frame. 60. 100 in the last one. The animation runs good. When it's going to 100 frame, it jumps to 60th. If we want it more realistic, we have to move the most of the bones. The more bones you move, the more realistic it will be, even if it's a very little movement. We can move this arm. And this other one. We can rotate them in the x-axis. We move to the next keyframes. We rotate the left arm in the y and x axis. We rotate the right arm. Press I key to insert keyframe. Also, we can rotate the head. We rotate it in these two keyframes. We also can rotate the middle body. We have moved all bones, for a realistic animation. Alt-A key to run the animation. We can adjust the keyframes, so the character to be able to walk better. Now, the end frame is 93. It is almost good, but we can improve it a little more. Let's see now. Maybe 96th frame. Okay. The next animation is attack. Let's move to another frame. Press Z key to change to Y view, and select the middle bone. We can rotate that bone in the X-axis. And we rotate the head. We rotate the left arm in the X-axis. And the left arm. We have moved a lot of bones, but we haven't saved them. If we move to another frame now, all the changes we have done to the bones will disappear. So, before moving, press A to select all bones, and press I key, and then lock plot. Let's see how it works. Not bad. We move forward to another frame. Now, we can move up the base bone in the Z-axis. And we rotate the middle bone. we move a pair of bones like that. We can move this arm. Let's check it. Slap. Good smack. Now the character falls again. We can duplicate the first keyframe of the animation. We can rotate this bone. If we cannot see it, press Z key for wire view. Let's move all the bones. When you have moved all bones you need, remember to save them with I key. OK, and if it's a loop animation, you have to duplicate the first frame and move it in the last frame. The first frame would be 97. Shift E, and move it here, for example, in frame 131. So, type the end frame. 130. Ups, he is walking and attacking. We have to change the start frame to 97. We can see that the attack is a little sad. It cannot be said that he's fighting cruelly. Maybe, the character has to be more rotated, so it looks like he's doing a bigger effort. He's hitting very slowly, because there is a long distance between these two keyframes. We can move these keyframes with the G key. Now the last frame is 127. Run the animation. The character falls slowly. So let's move these keyframes. Now the last frame is 123. Run the animation. Pum. Eat my fist. That looks great. And now, the last animation left, is die. We start that animation using the end of the last animation. We will place the next keyframes here. The character could die this way. We can rotate the base bone in the x-axis 90 degrees. Minus 90 degrees, because here you can see that is a negative degree. We type, minus 90, and press enter. Save it with I key. If we now run the animation, the character would fall this way. Pom. That would be funny, but it's not what we want. We can see it in the right view, by pressing 3 key. We have seen before, that key 1 is for front view, 3 is for right view, 7 for top view. If we combine these numbers with Control key, we will get the inverted views. If 7 is for top, then Control 7 is for bottom view. Control 3 is for left view. Control 1 is for back view. OK, let's press 3 key for right view. If we run the animation between 124 and 132, we will get this. Although we cannot see it, it is assumed that there is a ground below the character. We have the cursor in the base of the character. So, if we create a plane, it will be placed in the cursor. Press Shift-A key to add a plane mesh. The plane has been created in the center of the cursor. Press S key to scale it, and do it bigger. In texture mode, all is very white, so let's change it to solid. In right view, we can see the plane as a yellow line. When the character dies, it is embedded into the ground. He is penetrating the ground. The half of the character will be over the ground, and the other half is into the ground. We have to move it up in the Z-axis. GZ, and then we move it 1 unity. The character is now perfectly placed over the ground. We have to save the new change with I key. Now it works better. But how the character rotates respect to the center, it still penetrates a little into the ground. For a correct rotation, the bone should be placed in this corner. But there is no problem. We can move the character up in the middle of the animation. How the character has jumped, it would fall backwards. He is falling very fast, so let's move these keyframes. The last frame would be 136. Let's type it. A little bit slow. $134. Now it looks good. When he's falling down, he must lift his arms. Let's rotate the arms. And a little the body and head. We select all bones, and insert keyframe with I key. When the character falls on the ground, the arms may do this. The head is under the ground, so let's move it up. Run the animation. If we want to see the die animation better, we can duplicate the last keyframe and make it longer. Now, last frame is 140. Run the animation again. When the character falls, It collapses over the ground, very unrealistic. It is supposed that the character has to bounce a little. For example, the arms bounce up. And the body. Select all bones and save them. Let's move this keyframe with G key. We duplicate them, and place them in 140. If we run the animation, the character bounces fast. We will move the keyframe just a frame. Run the animation. When the character bounces, it can adopt this pose. Run the animation. Good, let's see it in texture view. Great! We have done the 4 basic animations. So, we have already done the 4 steps to create a video game character. Modeling, texturing, rigging and animations. Now, let's export the character, to importing it in a video game engine. We select all keyframes with the A key, until all turn yellow. We must remove unnecessary elements, like the plane that we used as ground. Or the camera, that appears by default in every scene in Blender, because we don't need it. It is just needed for render images or videos. Now, we select the whole character with a key. In the camera icon, you can also find the range of the animation. By typing the range frame of the animation here, is the same of typing it where we have been doing it. Let's type here the start frame. 1. When all is selected, then we export it in File menu. Let's export it to FBX. We give it a name for the FBX file. A warning is telling us that one of the cubes has a different scale, but by clicking there, we apply scale to fix it. We did it! The next step will be the importation of that FBX file in Unity. We will see it in the next video tutorial. Bye!